Hello everyone, and welcome to the Stalwart Initiative. Today we start our brand new series, Multiclass In Session. And it's a series based on multiclassing in D&D 5th edition, and we're going to take two randomized classes, and we're going to smash them together. We're going to come up with an idea for a build, and then we're going to go over some tips and some ideas to help you with your multiclassing endeavors in the future. If you'd like to know what classes we're going to use ahead of time, follow me on Twitter, somewhere here, and I posted up ahead of time what classes are going to be in the next video. So let's begin. Just straight off the bat, when you're multiclassing, there are some certain things to keep in mind, and one of them is your ratio. So if you are playing a one-shot, a D&D 5e one-shot, that you know you're only going to play one game, the ratio is pretty easy because you don't have to really look ahead. You're only doing this a one and done with this character. But if you're playing a campaign, the ratio could be pretty important. And I like to have my character ratios, like how many levels in this class I'm going to have and how many levels in this class I'm going to have based on, for me it's the story, based on the character's story. And what we're going to do today is with the Ranger Paladin build, we're going to have a ratio that favors a Paladin. We're going to end up as a Paladin and putting all our levels in Paladin that we haven't put in Ranger. Caveat, Ranger is my least favorite class in D&D 5e, but we're not going to just put one level in it and say we're done. Oh no, we're going the distance with actually making this part of the character, and we get to do that with my favorite Ranger subclass, the Gloom Stalker. So let's begin. So the story of this character can be anything you want, but let's say they start out either in the Underdark, hunting monsters or doing missions or whatever the reason may be that they're there. They're in the Underdark, or they're in the back seedy streets of a large city, dealing with a lot of shady characters. Either way, your character is thriving in the darkness, in the shadows, in the underbelly of something. This is the Gloom Stalker way. So the first three levels of this character, and again, when you pick your levels and your ratio, that kind of depends on what levels you're working with as far as how long your campaign's going to run. Most of us know that campaigns normally aren't a level 1 to level 20 ordeal. Congrats to you if you've been a part of one of those. I've longed for a campaign from level 1 to 20, but I've yet to be graced with one. But our first three character levels are going to be put into Ranger. That'll bring us up to third level where we get to pick our Ranger archetype, and that's where we will do the Gloom Stalker. So you start out with this dark beginning, right? And you've immersed yourself in this lifestyle. And then what we're going to transition to after level 3 is taking on a more light approach. We're going to move into the Devotion Paladin. Paladin is a very strong class, and Devotion Paladin is very versatile and very good in a team player. And this is kind of a Dark Knight or, Batman Dark Knight, or a Grey Knight style character where you come from darkness, you work towards light, and you can work that into the story however you want, your story. There is no best or worst class in D&D, and there is no right or wrong way to play your character. This is just to give you some ideas and some tips for mechanics. So let's start off with the Ranger. So your first three levels are going to be in Ranger, and there are some perks for picking Ranger at first level. Now, to keep things in mind when you multiclassing, it's pretty important what you pick for your first level of your character, because that's where a lot of your proficiencies come from, and some things that don't transfer over when you multiclass. So that's kind of important. Let's go over those now. So as a first level Ranger, when you start your character, either you're starting at first level or just whatever, your first level of this character, we're going to pick Ranger. And we're going to do that for several reasons. One, because it fits the story. That's the most important to me. I like to have characters according to the story and what fits for them. But it's also mechanically, I recommend it mechanically in this situation. So, saving throw proficiencies. So, when first level, whatever class you pick for your first level, you're proficient in the saving throws of 2 ability scores in there. And for Ranger, it's dexterity and strength. Those are two saving throws that are really good to have because they come up quite often, especially dex saves. And as opposed to the Paladin's Wisdom and Charisma saves. Wisdom is a good saving throw to have because it goes against a lot of magic spells and things that, you know, are to control you. But Charisma you don't see as often as some of the other saving throws. So plus for the Ranger on strength and dex save proficiencies. Next up we have skills. Paladin, you only get to pick 2 skills from a list that is pretty narrow, in my opinion. It's either focused towards the physical part of the Paladin or towards the social part. Whereas the Ranger, you get to pick 3 skills, and it's from a pretty broad range list. And on some of those are some very universally useful skills, such as perception, which is one of the best skills to be proficient in. Investigation, super useful on many occasions. And for my third one, I'd probably pick stealth or insight out of that list, depending on depending on your campaign. A lot of this depends on what kind of campaign you're going to be in, and what your character's like. So stealth or insight for the last one. There is a downside to taking Ranger at first level over Paladin, and that comes in the form of your equipment. Both are pretty good as far as weapons. I think you're proficient in all simple weapons and martial weapons for both. But armor, if you don't pick Paladin at first level, you're going to lose your ability to be proficient in heavy armor from your class. So rip heavy armor. If that's your main focus, or if that's something that's really important to you, then you might want to consider a different route with this, because you're only going to be proficient in light and medium armor if you start out as a Ranger, unless you take a feat later on to help you gain proficiency in heavy armor. Also something to consider. What else? So the features of a Ranger. So as a level 1 Ranger, you get your favorite enemy feature, which is nice to have, especially if you know what the campaign's about and your character aligns with the mission of the campaign. So your favorite enemy might align with, the whole aspect of the campaign, which is super useful. Also, you get Natural Explorer at level 1. That is the Ranger. I am super useful in all exploration manners in this way. Super useful feature. Great level 1 feature for a Ranger. A lot of times that's why some people dip 1 level into Ranger, just to get the Natural Explorer feature. At second level, because we're going to go 3 levels into Ranger, at second level we're going to get a fighting style, and this is just to better your martial prowess, to make you better at something, whether it be bows or 2-weapon fighting or whatever it is. Whatever you choose, you get a fighting style, which does not stack with other fighting styles from other classes, which you can get from Paladin later on. The same one doesn't stack. You can pick a different one, but the same fighting style does not stack. Also, we get Spellcasting at level 2 with the Ranger, and that's pretty cool. We're only going to go 3 levels in Rangers, which means we're only going to learn 3 spells total, and we're only going to know first level spells. So no powerful spellcasting coming from Ranger, but that's okay, because that's just our beginning. And these spells are just a nice addition to the character we're going to build. And for this, I would pick things like that Paladin can't use. For Ranger, I'd pick things like Hunter's Mark, Goodberry, and probably for your third spell, either something like Alarm or Speaks with Animals. You could also do Cure Wounds. You can use that. The Paladin does get that as well, but Cure Wounds is, it's great for anybody to have. So yeah, that's the spellcasting and fighting style. Third level, we're looking at Primeval Awareness is one of the third level features, and that is a great all-around feature for the Ranger. And also the biggie is your archetype at third level. Since this is our last level in Ranger, this is where we get our archetype, your specialization in Ranger, and ours is Gloom Stalker. And if you'd like to see more about Gloom Stalker, check out Xanathar's Guide to Everything. That's where the Gloom Stalker is located. And you get some great features even just at third level in Gloom Stalker. So let's take a look at those. You get 3 features as a Gloom Stalker when you become one at third level. First is you get the third level Ranger spell, Disguise Self, and which is pretty cool, but it's a little bit tricky. We'll talk about that later on. But Yeah, Disguise Self, great, all around good spell, especially as a ranger. You don't normally have access to that. The second feature is your Dread Ambusher, and this is a great feature. It gives you multiple things. One is a bonus to your initiative rolls equal to your Wisdom modifier. Again, we are transitioning to Paladin, so your Wisdom modifier probably isn't going to be that high. You want to have it a little bit up because you do start as a ranger, but you're going to be sacrificing elsewhere unless you're doing rolls for your stats as opposed to point buy or something like that. So your Wisdom might not be that up, but you do get a boost to your initiative based on your Wisdom score, so that's nice. And the first turn of every combat is essential for you. So you are this Dread Ambusher. You are great at ambushing things. You're great at reacting quickly to a fight that's breaking out. On the first turn of combat of every combat, you get +10 to your movement. You get this initiative bonus that I mentioned before, and you also get an additional attack. If you attack, you get an additional attack, and you also get an extra D8 of damage on top of this additional attack, which is great considering you're going to become a paladin later on, and these additional attacks can lead you to additional smites, which is the paladin's way of nuking enemies. Super cool and very useful in every combat situation. Having the ability to hit again is always useful. So you get that on your first turn of combat, and then everything kind of levels out. Your third feature, and also a very useful and powerful feature, is Umbral Sight. So Umbral Sight gives you, if your character doesn't have dark vision from their race or from some other means, if your character doesn't have dark vision, it gives them dark vision, which is super useful for anybody in D&D 5e. And also, on top of that, if you already have dark vision, it gives you a boost in range. I believe it's 30 feet. Correct me if I'm wrong. On your already existing dark vision, making you even better. But the icing on the cake is that if any creature relies on dark vision to see you, you're invisible to that creature. So let's say you're in the Underdark, or you're in somewhere that is dark, and a creature that lives in the darkness doesn't need torchlight or doesn't need light to see you. In this instance, when you have the Umbral Sight, you are invisible to them. They actually need the light to see you, and otherwise they can't find you, or they have a hard time doing so. And making you invisible doesn't mean you're impossible to detect, but it makes it very hard for them to do so. Great, awesome feature, and useful on every character. And that's my one favorite thing with certain subclasses and certain features in D&D 5th edition. When I come across something that is universally useful, I hold on to it dearly, because that is great. It's not wasting something. So all these features in the Gloom Stalker in 3rd level are all great, and they're all universally useful. Good job. So you've reached 3rd level. You've lived this shady life, or at least this life in dark places, and something has happened to you that has changed you, and you want to turn to a life that is more tied to a devotion towards a higher path. Wow, I didn't scroll through all this Ranger stuff. So here's Ranger stuff. Features for the first 3 levels. I know. It's all in the player's handbook. There's also Gloom Stalker stuff from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. You get some spells here, which you'll only get to 3rd level. Yeah. Also the Dread Ambusher, the Umbral Sight. My bad, y'all. I'm just excited, pumping through it. So here's the Gloom Stalker stuff. And you won't see any of the late game stuff, but now we're going to move on to our Paladin breakdown for this character, for this build. So when you transition in 4th level to Paladin, this is a pretty good transition in my opinion. Paladin is a strong class. It's not one I choose too often, but it's one that I stand behind as being very, very powerful and a very good class overall, because who doesn't love a devoted good guy? I do. So as you transition into Paladin, it's your story, it's your game, so you choose how you want to do that transition. But you're going to go into the Oath of Devotion. You're going to work towards that. So you have to start off as a level 1 Paladin, and this is going to take some time to build up to your Oath of Devotion, because you are a level 1 Paladin. Even though you're a 4th level character, you're a level 1 Paladin. So this is it's like you're starting all over again. And this is kind of how multiclassing goes. You don't just get to, stop your progression from the Ranger and just keep progressing halfway through the Paladin or partially the way through the Paladin. You pretty much have to start all over. There are some things that are based off your character level that do transition quite well. But again, a lot of things you have to start all over, and that includes like your spells and your features and so on. So as a first level Paladin, you get Divine Sense, which is a super useful feature. And as I said before, this one is based on your charisma modifier, as a lot of things Paladin are, because it makes sense. So, which is why you probably didn't want to dump too many points into your wisdom from the beginning. Just saying, because if you know you're transitioning to Paladin, if you're just arriving here and you didn't know this is where your character was going to go, then that makes sense. You might not have all the charisma that you'd like. But so you have Divine Sense, you have Lay on Hands, Lay on Hands is phenomenal. A phenomenal, one of the best Paladin features, because you can divvy it out as you'd like. You can raise people up multiple times. You can heal people and heal yourself. You can neutralize effects. It's super useful. Lay on Hands is phenomenal. You also, as we transition to your second level Paladin, you'll get a fighting style. So as long as it's not the same fighting style that you picked when you were a Ranger, you can pick it here as a Paladin. And Paladin has 4 fighting styles. You see Defense, Dueling, Great Weapon Fighting, Protection. These are all very Paladin-themed fighting styles. And the Ranger had some different ones as well. So depending on what your character's feeling and what you're motivated for at this point in your character, just pick a different one. Also at second level, like the Ranger, you're going to get Spellcasting. And Spellcasting for Paladin, we all know that Paladin uses their spell slots a lot of the times for using it for smites. Granted, that's their bread and butter is smiting, but at the same time, Paladins do have some pretty useful spells as well. So take a look at those spell lists as you level up, and you can cast different spells. Let's see here, and that's based off your charisma. Again, remember those small ranger spells that you had earlier probably don't need to scale off your wisdom as much as these need to scale off your charisma, because you're going to keep going in this class. So at third level, you get second level, you also get your Divine Smite, if I didn't mention that, and that's your way for you to boost your attacks, make those nukes, explosion, a lot of damage, a lot of fun. So at third level, you get Divine Health, which makes you immune to disease. Universally useful. Might not always come up, but it's never not good. There's a double negative for you. So yeah, Divine Health, good. Also, you get to pick your oath, which is the Paladin's version of a subclass, their archetype. And for us, as I mentioned before, we are picking Oath of Devotion. And it's where we come down to this, or when we move down to our oaths, I'll explain that little thing with this guy's self earlier. Once you get to your 4th level as a Paladin, and this will be 7th level character, then you can finally start adding your ability score improvements. I recommend either Charisma, Strength, or Constitution. However you're gearing your character, just plan on doing the Paladin the rest of the way out, unless the story brings you otherwise, or you decide to go otherwise. At 5th level, you get an extra attack. 6th level, you get Aura of Protection. Auras, Paladins and Auras are sick. And sick in a good way. They're fantastic. I can't count how many times players and their party members have passed saving throws because of Paladin auras. Super useful. And, Aura of Courage comes at 10th level. I'm not going to go over all the features. If you'd like to see Paladin features, Player's Handbook, the SRD has some stuff. Just check it out, for yourself. Here's the Sacred Oaths, and it goes into the subclasses, which we are going to go to. Oath of Devotion. And once you get to 3rd level Paladin, this is where your character, or this character, is really turned around. And it says here that that binds a Paladin to the loftiest ideals of justice, virtue, and order. Maybe you've decided that the shady way you've been doing things isn't quite the way to go. And you decide to turn yourself around and do a more wholesome way, a more honest way, a more Paladin. I mean, this is the Paladin of Paladins, Oath of Devotion. And you get things. I'm not going to go through the entire progression because this will be of the course of your character, but you do things and it gives you spells starting at 3rd level. You get channel divinity options. You get other aura options, and you get curative spirit at 15th level. Holy Nimbus. It's paladins are pretty strong. And I think it's a great way to end your character, or at least to build off of. If you decide to take a 3rd character class on later on down the road, that's up to you. But yeah, I think this, dark beginning into an ascension of sorts into your devotion paladin is a great story arc. And if any of you decide to do this, please let me know. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you're streaming it or if it's on the web somewhere. I'll come check it out. I would love to be the source of any inspiration, or of if just something you didn't think of before. That's what this is all about. So thank you so much for joining me, everyone. I hope you've got something out of this. Overall thoughts, I think this will be a great multi-class build. And yeah, if you have any suggestions, tips for me, and anything else, hit up in the comments. I'll see everybody next time. Take care of yourselves and have a good one. See ya.